saving system settings and game progress on the memory card.
Hey everybody, welcome to the very first episode of Saving Progress, where we hope to learn a little bit more about our personal history with video games. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Addy, and I will be your host for this show. Today, for the pilot episode of this podcast, I just kind of want to go into detail about what exactly Saving Progress is and what I plan to do with it going forward. I also want to go into detail about some of my history with certain video games and franchises and, just kind of go along with this general outline for the theme that I have for this show. If you're new to the channel and scrolling back really far, then welcome. I hope you find it cozy here. For those of you that are seeing this as it's being uploaded, all 7 of you, then thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate the support. Quick note worth mentioning, I do have a script with some general guidelines here to remind me of what I want to say and what I want to talk about, but the short of it is I will probably talk off script for a lot of it. So keeping that in mind, and without further ado, let's go ahead and get this started. So, the general premise of this podcast is I plan to have a second person with me, and I will act as a sort of interviewer. Whether that be a good friend of mine or somebody else, more on that later. I plan to take them and sit them down to sort of probe their minds on what they think are the most influential video game titles of their lifetime. And I don't necessarily mean like influential to their generation or what they think has impacted the industry the most. I mean like what personally led them to loving this franchise as much as they do. And how did they learn to love video games because of it? I believe that most people, whether it be for nostalgia or because of genuine critical acclaim, everyone has a good reason for why they like something. And video games are definitely no exception. Even someone who majored in something super boring and has worked in a cube for 10 years has something to say about a game that they used to play as a kid. So because of that, I want to use this platform to really dig deep and get them to sort of open up more than usual about something they may have never really thought as much in depth about until now. So to, get on to the main structure of the podcast, first and foremost, what I had planned was, I think I'll go ahead and do a very brisk walking of myself through what I'd normally have planned for someone else, and then kind of put myself in their position, sort of interviewing myself kind of thing, just to kind of, like I said, get a feel for how the podcast will flow with another guest. So let's go ahead and get started on that. To start, the major idea of the podcast is I reach out to them and give them time to think of 3 titles or 3 series that they think they could talk about for several minutes on a podcast. And I ask follow-up questions that would lead them to talking more about them in detail, kind of really explaining their personal connections to this game. I also plan to throw a few curveballs their way to kind of keep them on their toes and hopefully not retain this super serious tone throughout the podcast because, I like making jokes and most of these people I interview will be my friends, so it'd be weird if I sat them down to talk to them about something that is totally not serious as video games, and I would practically be interrogating them like we're having an intervention or something. I want to have thought-provoking discussion, but it doesn't mean it has to be sterile. Like, we can have a bit of fun. It doesn't have to go overboard, but if it does, I want to keep that train going. So, the 3 franchises that I chose for myself are Kingdom Hearts, of course, The Legend of Zelda, and God of War. These are all series that have been a part of my life for a huge amount of time, and these are definitely games that I could talk about for hours on end, but to keep things simple, we'll keep it under an hour. And generally speaking, I think I want to, for this episode, stick to one of these franchises. And if I see that it's going on like too long, then I'll stop it there. But if it doesn't take too much time, then I'll go into detail about all 3 and share my history, my opinions, my thoughts with it. Let's go ahead and just get started with that. And I think the best place to start with that would be with Kingdom Hearts. I know a little too much about this series, but if I had to introduce it to someone else, basically you start off as this kid named Sora, and what Sora is doing is he lives on this island with his friends, and effectively, like, darkness, I guess, is the most vague way to put it. Darkness comes and sweeps them off of their island, kind of rips them away from this life that they wanted to lead. Destiny sort of just strikes them sooner than they expected, and they're ripped away from their home island, away from their families. And Sora wakes up in this wacky little town called Traverse Town. He has no idea where his friends are, where he is even, and the only thing that he knows is that he wakes up and he has this Keyblade. And the Keyblade, of course, for those of you that are familiar with the series, is what he uses to vanquish, like, the enemies of the series, like Heartless and Nobodies and all that jazz. So, you know, to not go super into detail about, like, the summary of the games and everything, he goes and visits a bunch of different Disney worlds looking for his friends, hopefully trying to find them, like, on these worlds. And if they're not there, then he visits the next one, and this whole story unravels where there's this, like, deep-seated conspiracy with, like, all this darkness and happening in people's hearts. Yeah, it's pretty insane for what was essentially marketed as a children's series. I mean, even if it wasn't, you know, you still have Disney characters in it, so it definitely feels like it was, but it's crazy because I'm not even really a huge Disney fan. I don't watch Disney movies, and I hadn't really, like, when I was growing up, so the fact that I latched onto Kingdom Hearts so much is interesting, to say the least, for me. But, yeah, ultimately, I have a lot of experience with the series, and following up with some more questions that I have for myself, what made you interested in the game? Do you remember how you discovered it, and did you pick it up off the shelf, or maybe an older sibling gave it to you? For myself, I know that my brother had originally played the games, and being the little brother, I watched him play these games because, you know, at the time I was too young to really understand, so I just kind of watched what was happening on screen. Yeah, that's basically how a lot of my video game experience went. I would be watching him play the games, and then when he would eventually get, like, a new console or something, or whatever it might be, he would hand that down to me, and then I would finally be able to experience these games for myself. So I did have time to play Kingdom Hearts as a kid, mainly Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, which back then 2 was the only one that I had actually beaten. I didn't beat 1 because I probably got lost in Alice in Wonderland, but that was like my general experience with, like, my first memories of the series. And a little later, like, into my life, I ended up picking up a bundle for the PS3. It was red PS3, I believe Slim, and it came with all of the God of War games, so that kind of ties into my appreciation for the God of War series. And at the time, 1.5, 2.5, all of those were coming out, so I finally had a chance in that moment to go back and be able to finally play all these games again, because, you know, I never owned a PSP. I never got to play, like, Birth by Sleep or whatever the other ones were. Like, I had a DS, but I didn't even know that there was a game on the DS, because at the time I'm just like, oh, you know, why are they hopping around all these different video game platforms? That just doesn't make any sense. But, you know, funny story actually about people watching Kingdom Hearts. Over here on the East Coast, we have these grocery stores called Giant Eagle, and which honestly is kind of a badass name, like, now that I'm thinking about it. Pretty cool name for a supermarket. I guess that's what it is. But basically, inside of those Giant Eagles, they had what was called the Eagle's Nest. And the Eagle's Nest was like sort of a pseudo daycare for whenever you're going to the grocery store with your mom, and your mom could drop you off there and go do her shopping while you get to essentially hang out in this room with a bunch of other kids, play video games, you know, play with toys, whatever it might be. and I have no idea if it was free or not, but like that's such a cool concept. I have no idea like why it stopped being a thing, or even if it really did stop being a thing. But yeah, I like that was my experience with that. However, one day whenever I was at the Eagle's Nest, they had the PS2 set up, and I was there, you know, just like trying to figure out something, like figure out what I want to do that day. And I saw that they actually had the first Kingdom Hearts game loaded up for the PS2. So, you know, of course, I ran over, I sat down, I started playing it, and, you know, all the other kids around, you know, they're playing other games, like someone had just left the game open on the pause screen. So I was playing around, like fooling around on Destiny Islands, the place that you start off on, and you know, I'm progressing the story because at that point I understood like, oh yeah, I need to do this in order to like have like these events sort of unfold. And then like all like the darkness starts coming in, and then, you know, these kids are like sort of peeking over my shoulder. They're like, whoa, like I didn't realize that there was more to this game. I thought you just run around on this island and like do a bunch of goofy stuff. And I'm like, no, man, there's like so much more to this game. You visit like Disney worlds, and you know, you can like swim around with Ariel, like in the ocean. Like it's insane. They're like, whoa, that's crazy. I had no idea. So that's a pretty good memory for me, just because I blew these kids' minds about a game that they probably would have never even known anything about, aside from the very first island, you know. So that's a fun little memory. But to answer the question, yeah, I was originally introduced to the series by my brother, just having played it, and then eventually in the future I got to go back and actually replay these series with like my adult, I guess not at the time, a teenager knowledge, but yeah, go back in and really sort of like, you know, like go farther with the game that I would have when I was less than 10 years old, you know. So yeah, so at this point, if I had another guest, I would probably start asking them like other follow-up questions, like related to what they're talking about, sort of just like have them go into a little bit more detail about whatever it is that they're talking. Like if there's a term that I might not understand about the series, like I might ask about it just to get them to kind of open up and talk a little bit more. I do have some follow-up questions here for myself though. So generally speaking, why is this game so important to you? Do you feel like this game has made you think differently in any way? Maybe had like a perspective changed on something? Or is it something as drastic as reevaluating life, you know, or, you know, like, did it just help you learn something new? Basically a bunch of other questions that, for whatever is relevant at the time, I would ask that question and sort of follow up. So to answer that, I guess I should say, why is this game so important to me? Well, it helped me relate, I guess, more to other kids. So, like I said, I was never really a Disney kid. I didn't really do like a lot of stuff that kids would normally do at my age. Like especially around that time, you know, I was really into like manga, and I didn't really know what anime was. I didn't even really know that like manga was Japanese. I just liked the aesthetic of it, I guess. But you know, like I was doing a lot of that, and I was drawing a lot of art and stuff. And I feel like everyone kind of goes through like a drawing phase, like where they think they can become an artist. But I went like really far with it, but because of that, I never really got into like all the other stuff that the kids were into. I feel like that also kind of explains my taste in music, because it's so, I guess, out there. Like, I mean, only just recently I started listening to a lot more like pop music, and, you know, just more culturally relevant stuff, I guess. I feel like Kingdom Hearts kind of helped me understand because of the like whole Disney aspect. And, besides that, I guess it just kind of opened me up to this world of like games that have this like grandiose, is that how you say it? I don't know. But this vast story that unfolds over multiple series of games, or multiple entries within the same franchise. It's just such an expansive universe that I was blown away, like, to be quite frank. You know, the only other series that did that for me was like The Legend of Zelda. But that came, I think, after Kingdom Hearts. And then God of War, of course, didn't really happen until I got my PS3. But Kingdom Hearts was like the first for that, like first in line for that sort of thing for me. I don't know if it necessarily like changed my perspective on things. Like it, like I guess like how I mentioned it, it like opened me up to this like new world of video games, like more than just like high score based stuff. And I mean, I'm sure that's how a lot of people felt like in the transition to 3D with like N64 games and all that stuff. But for me, Kingdom Hearts was like that series for me. And I don't think I really felt anything like super personal until relatively recently, like within the past like several years. That's when I decided that I was like, you know, I had to sit down and I was like, what are my favorite games? And like several years ago, I guess what I would have told you at the time might have been like what I had played recently or just something else. But every single time I thought about what my favorite games were, Kingdom Hearts sort of always popped up on that list of games, you know? So at like time and time again, it helped me realize that this was a series that is definitely one of my favorites, if not my favorite. And I genuinely couldn't tell you why, because like this series is something that like, if you don't like Kingdom Hearts, holy crap, I understand. Like I would not expect you to like dive in, especially like with the whole like Sora release and everything. I bet there's like tons of people playing Kingdom Hearts for the very first time right now. Cause they're like, all right, I gotta know what the hell this stuff is all about. Like, what's this hype? You know, like I totally get it. If you don't like it, that's fine. But it's definitely worth giving a chance. Like for a game series that has so many fans and so many like entries within the series, you could play a Kingdom Hearts game on virtually any platform now. Like even if you have an Xbox, you can play Kingdom Hearts 3. Although I strongly don't recommend you start with Kingdom Hearts 3, although I'm sure tons of people are doing that right now. You know, even jumping from 2 into 3 is kind of a shit show. Yeah, even jumping from 1 to 2 is also a shit show because there's no like every single game that seems like it would be a spin-off is actually relevant to the main story. Like you would think like the main serializations 1, 2, and 3 are one story and then the rest are just like their own independent stuff. No, that could not be further from the truth for Kingdom Hearts. And I think that's the biggest drawback for a lot of people. I think that's why I like Persona so much because, you know, whenever I saw, oh God, it's Persona 5, you know, I have to play all the other games first and really get into it. But like, one, I saw that the games are like hundreds of hours long. Not hundreds. I mean, if you leave it on while you go take a shower or something, then sure. But like very long games. And also I saw that you don't have to play them in any specific order to really appreciate them. You'll see how like the combat evolves and everything, and different story elements like might be referenced in future games. But yeah, ultimately you don't need to play the old games in order to get into the new ones, which I liked a lot about Persona. But for Kingdom Hearts, it's just not the case. It's so hard for me to recommend to someone else, but I know the people that love it, they love it so much. And I'm definitely one of those people. I cannot stop recommending it to people, but if you don't like it, I understand. Like, I really do. If I had to list its strongest point, it would definitely be its combat. The combat is insanely fun. In Kingdom Hearts 2 specifically, it's a lot of fun. I believe it's the most fluid that the series has ever been. After that, I would probably say Kingdom Hearts 3 is pretty fun for like newcomers. And then Birth by Sleep, Dream Drop Distance, and worth mentioning in case you didn't already know, you can actually play every single game on the PS4 or PS5. with the collections that they have. So there's 1.5, 2.5, 2.8. I mean, it sounds confusing, but all you need to know is that each collection comes with 2 games and 1 movie, and the movie summarizes one of the games. So you don't have to go and find this obscure DS game or feel like you have to trudge through it in order to really understand what the plot is. Like, you don't need to do that. You really don't. So what I would recommend for anyone, try and find the all-in-one series. That comes with all 3 collections, and you get pretty much every single game and all the cutscenes to the games that are not really worth playing. Some people will kill me for saying that, but 358 over 2 days can be kind of a slog for a lot of people unless you like love the story of Roxas and Shion. But like, if you only care about Sora, Donald, and Goofy, don't worry about it. It'll help with context for Kingdom Hearts 2, but you can just watch the movie or read a plot summary. It's really not that big of a deal, if you ask me. I think if the game is fun, that's what matters. Like, the story is just kind of the cherry on top in this instance, because one of the most notorious things about the series is that the story is so terrible. I shouldn't say terrible. It's incredibly convoluted, and there's a lot of retcons and plot holes, and people have gone on hours and hours, like in a non-podcast format, talking about how messed up these series are, like these entries in the games, and like why they did this instead of this, and like, it's not my place to really talk about that. I'm trying to get you to play the games. So yeah, it's just one of those series that it's worth giving a shot at least once. If you don't like 1, jump into 2. If you don't like 2, jump into 3. And if you really don't like 3, then go play Animal Crossing or something. I don't know. But yeah, ultimately, that is generally all I have to say about Kingdom Hearts. The next one, let's say, let's go in order of like when I was introduced. So first was Kingdom Hearts. Let's move on to The Legend of Zelda. So Zelda is another one of those series that it's like, you can play any game in the series, but it's not like how Persona is. Most of the games are completely different from one another. So it's like, you will play a Zelda game that's like 2D, but then I'll play another one that it involves like motion controls, So it really doesn't matter which one you play. Like, some people will say like Ocarina of Time is their favorite, which was on the N64, but like, other people will say that Link to the Past was their favorite because it's a 2D Zelda. They prefer 2D Zelda over 3D Zelda, whatever it might be. Personally, I like 3D Zeldas. It's just what I grew up with. I never really played like any handheld Zeldas, only because I missed the whole Game Boy Advance generation. I never had a Game Boy Advance. I only ever had the original DS, and it had a Game Boy Advance slot, but my little kid brain at the time was like, oh, why would I want to play a game with no 3D models? Like, that's so dumb. Like I want to play the game that has the best graphics or whatever the hell, so because of that, I missed out on a lot of Game Boy Advance games. And like, of course, now I'm kicking myself over it because, I could have been playing Spirit Tracks or Minish Cap, but so if none of that makes sense to you, let me go ahead and explain what Zelda is. I'll keep it general. So the whole series revolves around what is effectively known as the Triforce. The Triforce consists of 3 pieces. You've probably seen it. It's like 3 triangles. Anyways, the 3 pieces are one for power, one for wisdom, and one for courage. Power belongs to Ganondorf or Ganon, whatever you prefer. Wisdom refers to Zelda, and courage refers to Link. And in every single game, there is always going to be a Link, a Zelda, and a Ganon or Ganondorf. every single game follows this very core, like this is like its core concept, So when you're going into any game, you can at least expect that to be consistent. Some people actually got mad about that because they're like, oh, they introduced this like really cool new villain, but then of course they had to end it with Ganondorf. Like, why couldn't it have been just this guy the whole time? Like, who cares? It's still a good game. It's still really fun. Sorry if you like the other dude more than the other guy, but I don't know. Anyways, Zelda is just like, a lot of you are probably familiar with Breath of the Wild because that's the most recent entry that isn't a remake for the series or like an HD port or something. Breath of the Wild is amazing, first and foremost. And second off, it strays from the Zelda formula, unlike how any other 3D Zelda had done it at the time. Generally speaking, Zelda is a linear game series. You go from dungeon to dungeon. You don't really explore very much. There's some element of like going to talk to NPCs, picking up like special items and stuff. But the formula is you get an item, or like you progress through the story, you get an item, and then you use said item in the dungeon to go through it and defeat the boss. And that's pretty standard, like gameplay, or really game writing in general. And I think that's why the Legend of Zelda series is so beneficial, because it's so easy to sort of get lost and imagine yourself in these scenarios, like fighting in this fantasy world, like being picked up as this like random dude, because you name Link whatever you want to. Like, you can name it yourself. I always named it after myself because, I just want to be in a video game. That's just my childhood dream. I've always like kind of inserted myself into the position of the protagonist. I know a lot of people don't do that. They just put his name as like Butt or something. I don't know. But the premise of it is just going through the story, experiencing the dungeons and doing all this stuff. But what Breath of the Wild did is they basically took the Zelda formula and slapped a freaking Skyrim on it. Like, you could explore this vast universe and like look off in the distance, and it's like if you see a mountain, you can be like, yeah, I want to go to that mountain, and then you go to the mountain. Like, who would have thought that would be a good thing in a Zelda game? Turns out it's amazing. It really is. And I didn't think that I would like it because I don't really like open world games, but or at least I thought I didn't, but Breath of the Wild definitely opened me up to that sort of like open world aesthetic. And I think that's super cool. That like the series that I would have least expected that from, aside from God of War, which I will definitely get into that. I will explore my thoughts on that. But yeah, Zelda, great series, highly recommend it. So let's go ahead and ask these follow-up questions. What made you interested in the game? Do you remember how you discovered it? Yeah, same thing. My brother used to play it. He didn't let me play my own files, so to speak. I actually, oh man, I actually remembered that I accidentally deleted one of his files because when I was really young and I couldn't read, I didn't know what erase meant, and I did that on his file, which I remember him showing me, like, and I'm pretty sure he was like about to fight Ganon, so like that's awful. I would have kicked my own ass, like, if I could go back in time. I completely understand where you came from, man. So he would play these games, and then when he was done with them, he would hand them off to me. And Zelda was like one of those things that, it's worth mentioning. When I get into something, I never really stop being into it. I'm that way with a lot of things, and I just kind of explore them to the fullest I can. Like, if I really liked something, I can't get enough of it. and I generally stay a fan of it forever. So Zelda is definitely one of those things. And I bet you're probably wondering what my favorite is. Twilight Princess is my favorite. Hands down, most fun environment, most fun combat. Like it's quick, it's consistent. It's got the best sidekick character. Midna is absolutely number one. If you have any other comments or whatever you want to say about that, definitely let me know. But I have mulled it over for a long time, and Twilight Princess is definitely my favorite. Breath of the Wild is a very, very close second, but I think the nostalgia is what's keeping me from putting Breath of the Wild above it. I do need to replay it sometime soon so that I can experience it again. Or Twilight Princess to be specific, because I have a Wii U. I'm one of 10 people that currently owns one, aside from Scott the Wise, who has like 4 of them. And I definitely need to go in and play those. I also need to play Wind Waker again as well. Yeah, my brother gave it to me, and that's pretty much it, really. So why is this game so important to me? Do I feel like I made this, like, it made me think differently in any way? Perspective change, reevaluating life. You know, Zelda is one of those things that it's like, it's so simple in its design, yet it's so vast and expansive in its universe. I didn't even realize that the Zelda lore, like the Zelda timeline, was so deep. Like, playing the games, like, as a kid, you don't care about that stuff, you know? You just want to see what happens with Link. You want to see the different worlds, just all the cool different weapons you can get. But, like, again, recently, I saw, like, some videos about, like, the Zelda timeline, and I was like, holy shit, this is almost as complicated as how Kingdom Hearts is. Like, at least timeline-wise. The stories themselves are not that bad. I mean, like, yeah, when you introduce, like, games like Hyrule Warriors and stuff, like, where they're all, like, crossovers and things like that, then I could see that being a problem. But when it comes down to, like, I guess, like, series as a whole, you know, I can definitely see that as being convoluted. But, you know, has it changed my perspective on things? Yeah, I think Breath of the Wild definitely did. Like I said, in terms of open world games, that's definitely not something that I would have expected from the series. It really sort of it made me fall back in love with video games, because I knew I always liked video games, and I thought for a while that I was like, because, you know, I mentioned earlier that I like anime and manga and stuff, but I was like, you know, I don't, like, I like anime and I like manga, but I don't love them. Like, there's not a lot about it besides, like, the artistic integrity. Like, I really love the style and just, like, different, like, Sakuga, like, scenes and stuff. Like that shit's intense. But when it comes to, like, if I truly, like, appreciate it or not, it doesn't hold a candle to video games. Like, it really doesn't. And I realized that, like, after I played Breath of the Wild, I was like, video games are, like, my favorite thing. And if it's not video games, it's probably music or voice acting, which is why I have my 3 channels. Subscribe to all 3 of them. I'll leave links in the description in case you don't know about them. You really should, especially if you've gotten this far in the podcast. But yeah, I have my 3 channels, this one here for video games, my other one for voice acting, and my third and final one for music. So definitely check those out if you haven't already. But yeah, Zelda is just this game series that it really takes you away from your world that you're currently living in and places you in this fantasy environment. Like, especially if you're, like, super into immersing yourself as I am, like naming Link yourself and going off on these, like, adventures and things like that. Like, it's just such a magical experience, and I feel like there's not a lot of games that do it as well as Zelda does. And not only that, but they can span a game series for I'm willing to bet there's like over like 10 or 12 entries in the series. There's just so much that goes into it. Like, most franchises don't even last like 5 entries, you know? Like, I don't know, like Crash Bandicoot just recently got I think it's like a 4th installment or something. But Zelda has been amazing, like, for almost every single entry. And I said almost only to please the guys that don't think so, but I genuinely think that every game is good. And I'm not counting the CDI games. Those are not real. Anyways, it's just one of those things that it's just like, it's such a magical experience playing them. And when I'm able to get someone else into the series, whether it be like later on or like early on, I feel like I share this connection with them as well, because they understand, you know, they get why the games are so good, and they always have some sort of like unique personal attachment to it. Like, you know, I've established some of my best friendships by just saying that I like Zelda and they also happen to like Zelda. So it's something that just really makes you click as as a nerd, effectively. And you know, I really love that about the Zelda series. So yeah, I'll stop there for talking about Zelda. Just to kind of wrap things up, I will go ahead and start talking about God of War. Yeah, in case you don't remember, I mentioned that my first, well, actually, it wasn't my first experience, but when I bought my PS3, I got every single God of War game released at the time. I think Ascension was the last one that had come out. That was like, geez, I can't remember if it was a prequel or not. One of them was a prequel, but the series itself, I first got introduced to it. Again, my brother was playing it on PS2. I saw the first one being beaten by him. The second game I actually played at, this is a big, like, European thing, but it's like you always have to go with your parents somewhere, like no matter where you are, and you always have to play with like the kids that are at that like family friend's house. So one of those things that I always did when we went to this like specific family friend's house, and these kids were a bit older, so they didn't really care as long as I left them alone. One of the things that I did was play God of War at their house. Every single time I went over, I always wanted to play God of War. I believe it was the second one at the time. And I would play the shit out of it effectively. Like, and it was only whenever I went to their house. So, again, I didn't have a PSP, so I never really got into the other God of War games, until they got re-released on the PlayStation 3. Whenever they had, I don't know if it was just for the console being released or if they did it for like an individual release. It's very possible that they released it on its own. I'm not 100% sure because, like I said, I just got everything all at once. But yeah, I got to play God of War 1, God of War 2, and then I think it's Ghost of Sparta and Chains of Olympus were the PSP games. And then there was Ascension and God of War 3, and then I believe Ascension. So, and then God of War 3 actually got remastered on PlayStation 4. So you can also play that one as well, which is really nice. I plan on replaying it sometime soon, actually, just because I can't get enough of the series, especially after, oh man, what was this new installment in the series. And for those of you that don't know, God of War had revamped itself in terms of gameplay, I guess is the best way to put it. Like, I mean, yeah, it's entirely different in terms of gameplay. It plays like a Naughty Dog game, like third person over the shoulder. except there's no guns, no explosions. You're just throwing an axe and using like magic moves and stuff with your son running around and shooting people while you're also throwing your axe and swinging it around and being just this big burly menace. So, yeah, it's just one of those things that's like, if I was surprised that Breath of the Wild like explored this genre, I was definitely surprised when God of War started exploring this like third person sort of environment, because I don't know how you would really explain it, but the games were kind of set up like fixed camera, like in the past, like all of the games leading up to it where they were this like fixed camera, and the right analog stick would control your dodge movement. So it's like you would run around with the left stick on this like fixed camera angle, and if you wanted to dodge out of the way, you tilt the right stick in whatever direction you wanted to get out of, or like whatever direction you wanted to go in, and you just did this like super long ass like dodge roll. And yeah, the gameplay revolved around this like combo based setup. Not combo like how Devil May Cry is, but the more hits that you could chain, like just going into the 20s, 30s, 40s, the better of a rating you'd get. Kind of, well, I guess it's like Devil May Cry in that aspect, but it's not insanely combo based. It's just like go for as long as you can without getting hit. It's more like it. So, yeah, it like, and finally going back and playing like games like Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, what else? I don't know off the top of my head, but I can see where they all start to overlap. Oh yeah, Dante's Inferno as well is pretty well known copy of God of War. I mean, it might not be a copy. It might be a very blatant copy, but I did enjoy that game a lot. Just because it was a nice, refreshing take on the genre, with a different sort of storyline, and it's a different cultural context, like religious kind of context, and I think that's it was really interesting and really refreshing for the genre. But yeah, to sort of sum up like why it's so important to me, there's a lot to be said about that console being purchased for me. Like, that was my first, I guess, real big purchase. And I don't mean like real as in like really big. Like, it was my first, like my most important purchase at the time, and probably still is. Like, I just, saved up enough for, like, I think it was my first job ever. And I saved up enough to buy this thing all at once. And it was a super rewarding experience. So having God of War kind of share that experience for me, like, it really helped me realize like how good it is to save money. And, I'm not a financial expert by any means, but when you're like 15 or 16 or whatever, and you drop like $300, that's a big deal, So, God of War helped me kind of realize that. And it's like, there's a lot of things that I could have bought with that money, but I am so glad it was my PS3 because, these genres are so, like, these series are just so important to me, like with PlayStation. And when it comes down to, the like actual like characters and the stories themselves, Kratos is just this like, he starts off as this just like brutal kind of menacing, unloving, like rampaging. I could go on, but yeah, he's this dude who gets pissed off by a god because this god tricks him into killing his own family. And what he does, instead of moping about it, he goes and kills the God of War, effectively making himself the new God of War. So that's where the name comes from. And the series goes on from there to explain like what else he could do, I guess. Anyways, shit gets really messed up. the and the most recent game effectively has him starting over. Like, that's why he's entering Norse mythology, excuse me, instead of Greek mythology, because I guess he wanted to kind of get away from all of it and get away from that like chaos and destruction that he caused. And he's able to start a new family. So it's him and his son. This isn't a spoiler because it happens in the first literal second of the game, but Kratos' wife is dead in the latest game. And he is able to, I guess just like grow and become more of a family person, like more of a father to, this son that he has and whom he didn't really already have a like great pre-existing relationship with him. So it's amazing to see. And like, it reminds me of some like personal struggles that I went through, as well as just like reminds me of some other people in my life, that, you know, it's overall a very personal experience for me. I really love the story. I love the characters, just everything about it. It got me into mythology. It got me into pretty much anything to do with like just really crazy narrative driven beat 'em up games. It's just fantastic. Did it help me learn anything new or anything? I mean, not particularly. It helped me learn that I really like just beating the shit out of people in video games. So, you know, that definitely helped me. Oh, and also the God of War is also notorious for just being super violent. So, it helped me form a tolerance to violence in media. Because when I was really little, I didn't really have a tolerance for that sort of thing. I mean, I was playing baby shit like Kingdom Hearts and all that, you know, so I didn't, like, anytime I was playing a Flash game and there would be like blood in it or something, I'd be like, ooh, and I'd turn it off. So that's like a really like deep memory for me that like I guess God of War helped me get over that because it's so violent. And then like you get into games like Mortal Kombat, you know, like there was one that was on the N64, I think Mortal Kombat Trilogy, that you know, it was N64, so it wasn't that bad, but it's like, okay, it was bad at the time. I'm pretty sure Mortal Kombat started the whole like video games make you violent thing. So if that goes to show like how bad it was at the time, you know, that definitely would have sold it. I feel like God of War might have been a part of that as well, but maybe not. I don't know. Maybe that was past that generation. So yeah, I guess it helped me grow up, really. It helped me get through a lot of things that, you know, seeing like what Kratos goes through, seeing what, this kind of like rage that he just encapsulates. You know, you don't really see that in other characters. Like, they're not just killing for the sake of killing. And like, they don't sell like a tragic backstory as well as God of War did. So that really helped me, I guess, just, you know, get used to what games, what effectively games were being set up to become, like these amazing narrative driven, like theatrical performances, you know, like it's just these insane, just, I don't know. I've been rambling on for a while now, so I'm starting to lose, my thoughts, but, to, I guess, kind of wrap things up here, let's go ahead and talk about what else I have planned for this show. So, ooh, man. All right. Yeah. Effectively, I want to end the series with, or the episode rather, with some gaming news related to whatever the games are that we're talking about. Basically, just to kind of close out the story of whatever we are talking about, and to kind of lighten the mood, open up a little more conversation, just generally mellow things out before the episode eventually ends. And then once it all is said and done, I give them their chance to, you know, sort of like, again, reintroduce themselves, plug any last minute promos for their social medias or channels, or, you know, if they don't do that sort of thing, I'll just have them give off like a proper send off to the audience. You know, ultimately, I have really big plans for this channel, and this podcast, is going to be something that, like, it's been something that I've been thinking about for a while. And this is me talking, excuse me, it's me talking off script again, but, yeah, I just, I'm really excited to see where this goes. You know, I want to see what happens. And, you know, I'm really excited to share that with all of you. So, yeah. Oh, one more thing. I didn't really mention, like other guests and stuff. So like people outside of like my immediate friends circle. I of course want to establish the show a little bit more before I get into it, but I want to bring on people that don't really get to talk very much, about like things that they enjoy. So people with like Instagram pages, like they have their own like video game related, pages on, like it could be Instagram, could be Twitter, could be freaking Facebook. I don't know. But as long as they have 3 games that they can talk about in detail, and they have a like noticeable audience, I'd say, I want to hear what they have to say. I want to hear why they like video games so much and their personal connections to what they have. Like, just, you know, like what led them to this point in time, effectively. Like, why are they here talking to me about video games? Yeah. Let's go ahead and end this episode here because I am thirsty and I need some water. I've been talking for like an hour now, so I definitely want to move on. So that's gonna be everything. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed this very first episode. Thank you so much. If you made it all the way to the end, I am extremely grateful. Tune in next time when we find someone that we want to dive deep into their experiences with. And, you know, just share their personal connections with video games. I'm really excited to see where this goes. So, again, thank you so much for listening. My name is Abby. I have been your host, and we will see you later. Bye for now.